Welcome to the training on enrollment,
provided by the Utah Association of Public Charter Schools.
When a charter school is approved, the authorizer, usually the Utah State Charter School Board, gives the school an enrollment cap. This is the amount of students you can enroll. There is a bit of an art in managing your enrollment. Obviously, it is in your best interest to enroll as many students as possible. Well in advance of the start of a school, you should begin marketing to prospective students, hold events, get your name well known in the area, etc. Many schools mistakenly believe that if you build it, they will come. Having that approach could be detrimental to your school. Elementary schools have an easier time, but all schools need to have an ongoing system to encourage enrollment. Because your funding is tied to how many students are enrolled, but many costs, such as facilities, are fixed, having a higher enrollment will give you better resources to improve instruction and student achievement. For the purpose of this discussion, we're going to assume that you've done a stellar marketing job and students are beating down your door to show you how things should look. If you have not reached your enrollment cap, you may need some new procedures. In your initial year, there tends to be excitement about a new school. Maybe it will be a closer location for some students or relieve overcrowding at a district school. Maybe students are excited about a new curriculum method or flexible schedules. Maybe their neighborhood friends are making the switch and they want to come too. Some parents enroll just to keep their options open. Many people come simply because the grass is greener and no one school is going to be able to meet everyone's different expectations. New schools tend to get very excited about having high enrollment number or waiting lists. Having a high list is good, but be prepared for high turnover. Many decisions are based on friendships or siblings, and a decision about one student can affect many individuals on your list. Ideally, you should have 1.5 to double your enrollment cap wanting to enroll in your school if you expect to actually meet your cap once school starts. In the beginning of a new school or a new school year, people start to understand what your school culture is. If it aligns with their expectations, great. If it doesn't, some will choose to move to a different school. Some will decide at the last minute that they aren't willing to make the switch to a charter. Some have enrolled with you as a backup plan in case they don't get the teacher they want or jump ship at the last minute. Once school starts, students who are waiting for a spot in your school are much less likely to want to make the switch from where they have started the school year. Because of the last-minute adjustments, many schools strategically plan to over-enroll at the beginning of the year. Over-enrolling is a calculated guess. The State Charter School Board has contracted to pay you for a maximum amount of students. In the past, they have chosen to pay schools that were over-enrolled to a certain percentage if they had excess funds. Depending on enrollment at the rest of charter schools, they may not be able to do so. You need to understand that you may only be paid on the amount of students in your cap. However, if you have a large amount of movement at the beginning of the year, you will now have a few extra students to cushion that change. Even if you are the most wonderful school ever, you will have students leave throughout the year. Some schools prefer not to enroll new students in the middle of the year because of the added strain on teachers and possible impact on state testing scores. Some locations have higher turnover due to demographics. You need to decide what your school strategy is going to be and come up with a corresponding number of students to enroll. Charter schools are public schools of choice. With limited exceptions, all students have an equal chance of being accepted for enrollment. The only exceptions or areas of preference are the following. Number 1, the child or grandchild of a founding individual who contributed significant time to the school prior to opening. This is not open to interpretation. A list of founders is submitted to the SCSB prior to a school opening. Number 2, the child or grandchild of a charter school governing board member. Number 3, the sibling of a student previously or currently enrolled at the school. Number 4, the child of a charter school employee. Number 5, a student advancing from one school to the next where an SCSB approved agreement has been signed or where the schools are governed by the same governing board. For example, ABC Charter High School has agreed to accept all the students coming directly from ABC Charter Elementary School. Number 6, students residing within a 2-mile radius of the school. Number 7, the child of a military service member. Number 8, if it is a refugee school, the student's refugee status. Number 9, students of a low socioeconomic status or English language learner. These exceptions are given in State Code 53G-6-502. Not all schools will honor all exceptions. Which exceptions are allowed are specified in the charter and/or school policy. Many of these exceptions were added after the founding of some charter schools, so their governing documents must be updated to reflect the changes if they want to put the exceptions into effect. You cannot enroll one student over another because they have better test scores, their parents donate to the school, special education status, or behavior problems. Once you've determined the number of students to enroll and which enrollment exceptions will be in effect, you are ready to plan your open enrollment period. At least 60 days in advance, you must place your admissions procedures, open enrollment period date, opening school date if new, non-discrimination assurances, enrollment forms, and school calendar on your school website. Your admission procedures should be very specific, including preference exceptions and timelines for parents to respond to offers of admission. Many parents are very concerned with the admissions process. Be specific. For example, during the summer, you may give prospective parents 2 weeks to respond with the necessary paperwork for admission to hold their seat. However, in the week prior to school starting, you need a much quicker response and may only allow 3 days. Make sure you spell this out in your procedures, including the method you will use to contact parents. Many may be on vacation and not check email regularly and be angry that they did not understand what was expected of them. This is a highly emotional time, so the more information you communicate about the process, the better. During your open enrollment period, you allow all students who wish to apply to your school to do so. This does not mean they will become a student at your school. It only means they wish to do so. If at the end of the enrollment period you have more students than you can enroll, you must proceed to a lottery. First, students who have some kind of preference are grouped. Your enrollment procedures should specify a hierarchy for preference. For example, students of founding parents will be considered first, students of governing board members will be considered second, students of siblings be third, and students of employees will be considered fourth. You will look at the number of students in each grade and preference group and offer them a seat in your school. If any group exceeds capacity, they will need to be randomly chosen by lottery. For instance, you have 30 available seats for kindergarten. If we follow the preference hierarchy given in the example above, we group students based on their preference. We have 10 students of founding parents, 5 students of governing board members, 10 siblings, and 2 students of employees, and 50 students with no preference. Offers of admission will be given to all the founding parent students, all the governing board member students, all the siblings, and all the employee students. That leaves only 3 seats for the remaining students who wish to attend your school. Those students will be ranked at random, typically assigned by a computer program, and then given offers based on their ranking. This is usually not an event to be attended, simply a process to be followed. Those not being given offers would be placed on a waiting list according to their ranking. If a student given an offer of admission rejects their spot, you can make an offer to the next student on the waiting list. Make sure you have documentation of a student rejecting their spot before you move on to the next offer, just in case there is a misunderstanding. Decide which grade you will begin with. Typically, younger grades are easier to fill than older grades, so many schools specifically begin with older grades in their enrollment process. Why does this matter? Because if your 6th grade student has a kindergartner as a sibling, it means that once the 6th grade student accepts, his sibling goes from a student having no preference to one with preference, and you have to adjust accordingly. In some schools, parents spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out how to game the system. Some may even enroll an older student to gain preference and then withdraw them after the sibling is admitted. Make sure you've thought through your process and specified the details in your policy. Your office will get calls during your open enrollment period, and you need to make sure everyone understands how it works. Once you've worked through all your grades, made offers of admission and received returned paperwork and started school, there may still be students on your waiting list. It is typical for there to be a lot of movement even for the first few days after classes start. Keep working through your waiting list. Enrollment is officially counted on October 1st, so almost all schools will keep filling seats until this date. If your school has decided to keep filling seats, you will keep working off your waiting list until your next open enrollment period. At that time, waiting lists dissolve and the process begins again. Students not accepted for a particular school year do not stay on the waiting list for the next school year. Throughout this process, make sure you're working cooperatively with your local school district so that they are aware of which students in their boundaries have enrolled at your school. All schools need information and records to prepare accordingly, so be willing to share. Once you've made it through your first school year, the process starts all over again. But subsequent years have an extra step called the ITR, or intent to return. Before you know how many extra seats you will have to offer for enrollment, you need to know how many of your existing students will return again next year. Prior to your next open enrollment period, you need to have existing students fill out and return an ITR form. This typically happens as early as January. If students are not returning, you now have a written document allowing you to enroll another student in their place. Some may sign an ITR and commit to return, and then circumstances change. Because of this ongoing cycle, you should be marketing your school year-round. You are constantly communicating with parents to let them know how your school is succeeding and why they want to put in extra effort for their student to attend your school. You should also be sharing your success with the community to encourage new families to investigate your school. We hope this training has given you the information you need to effectively work through the enrollment process. This training has been provided by a grant from the Utah State Charter School Board.